Hello, welcome to Mrs. Pilcher's Bookshelf. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I would like to give a shout out to my friends Henry, Colin, and Corbin. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Were you able to guess the book from last time? The book was Cowboy Charlie by Jeanette Winter. This is a biographical book about Charles M. Russell, who was a Western artist. Like I said, the book takes place in the 1800s, late 1800s. And Charlie loved to listen to stories about the Wild West, draw pictures. His imagination was great. And he would draw pictures as he listened to the stories. All seasons, all different weather. On snowy days in winter, Charlie made his own Western world, fashioned out of beeswax scraps from Sister Sue's wax flowers. And that came in handy later on because all his life he would make little sculptures out of beeswax. And even at school, he had a hard time concentrating because all he could think about was being a cowboy. He loved to listen to the people talk about it. When Charlie was 15 years old and still dreaming of the West, now this is his whole childhood he's been thinking about the West, his mother and father let him go to Montana Territory with Pike Miller, a sheep rancher and family friend. They thought a month in the wilderness would chase the Western dreams away. Charlie and Pike rode the train to Red Rock where the tracks ended. They loaded their bags onto a stagecoach and continued on into the wilderness. Holding a buffalo skull he found while the horses rested, Charlie saw the country of his dreams unfold before his eyes. Well, that month turned into his lifetime. He never did go back home because he just loved what he saw and experienced. And he eventually goes on to work for different people. First job, Charlie's first job was herding sheep for Pike. But he lost the sheep as fast as they were put on the ranch. He lost his job too. Charlie headed off alone for the Judith River with his few belongings and his horse Monty. He camped by the river, wondering what to do next. As Charlie sat modeling his tiny beeswax animals, a bearded stranger rode up. He introduced himself as Jack Hoover. He ends up living with Jack for a bit, learning from him, helping him, drawing as he listens to stories, and eventually he ends up getting a job as a cowboy. He's a night hawk. He guarded the cowboys' horses, all 400 of them, on long nights. Even on stormy nights, Charlie loved his new life. At last he was a cowboy. And again, he would listen to the stories. He's 18 by this point. He even starts making up stories. And he had lots to draw from, literally draw from. He would help herd the cattle. It's a very long picture. You may not be able to see it all. And then he goes to live with an Indian family, a Native American family, for a winter, and learns their language and paints and sketches there. They provide lots of stories for him there as well. And then after the snow melted, Charlie returned for the spring roundup. By now he was a night herder, singing to hundreds and hundreds of cattle in the moonlight. Charlie looked up at the stars. He was glad to be a cowboy. Charlie sang to the cattle for many years, but the West was changing. The railroad cut through the plains, bringing settlers, towns, and locked doors. Barbed wire fences were everywhere. The great herds of buffalo were gone. Charlie did not like the changes. He stopped singing to the horses and cattle and settled into a log cabin studio and painted the stories he had heard from the cowpunchers and mountain men and the tales and the legends of the Indians and all his years as a cowboy, and told the story of the Wild West. After giving up his work as a cowboy in 1892, Charles Russell became a full-time artist. His painting and sculptures can be seen at the C.M. Russell Museum in Great Falls, Montana, and in art museums across the country. He died in 1926. And the Wichita Art Museum actually has a whole room dedicated to his drawings and his sculptures. So if you are in the area, it's a great place to go check out his work, along with reading the book Cowboy Charlie. So I hope you enjoyed this book. I love making connections with things that are local or experiences that you may have had. So another great book to add to your collection or just check out from your local library to read. Now, our next book is also a biographical book. This one, again, is in the late 1800s. And it has to do with the World's Fair. It's written by Catherine Gibbs Davis, illustrated by Gilbert Ford. So I hope I'm going to give you enough clues that you can guess what this book is. It was only 10 months until the next World's Fair, but everyone was still talking about the star attraction of the last World's Fair. At 81 stories, France's Eiffel Tower was the world's tallest building. Its pointy iron and air towers soared so high that visitors to the top could see Paris in one breathtaking sweep. I love this book because it has little sidebars that give you more information about things going on in the story. Now it was America's turn to impress the world at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. But what could outshine the famous French Tower? And who would build it? A nationwide contest was announced. Contest drawings poured in from around the world, but most of the plans looked like the Eiffel Tower, only bigger. The fair judges said no to every last one. Was this really the best that American engineers could muster? To an ambitious young civil engineer, this contest was more than a dare. It was a matter of national pride. He had already designed some of the country's biggest bridges, tunnels, and roads. He could never allow a French tower to overshadow America's World Fair. Why hadn't the United States built the world's first skyscraper? He had seen the elegant steel frame rise 10 stories high with his own eyes. Well, he does win the contest, goes on to build this invention. Nothing like it had ever been built before, of course. And it's just fun to see how it was built and the reaction of the people when it is finally built. Now, I will give you a clue that this is something that you will ride at an amusement park or a fair. And it's one of my favorite things to ride. My daughter and I were in Chicago a few years ago, and we rode, probably the biggest one we've ever ridden was in Chicago, which is where the World's Fair took place as well. So I hope you have enough clues to guess what the title of this book is. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk with you another time.